It was a budget that was termed Asempa, and Asempa just means the good news. And following through were jubilations from the spare parts hub here in Accra and Kumasi by those dealers and traders in spare parts who really were showing their gratification for those taxes that have been removed on the import of those parts they usually bring from abroad. But those were not the only category of people who were also affected or influenced by the budgets. But we have an array of things to talk about this morning, and who better than somebody who knows the ins and outs of the economy, but also the world of business. And we have Dr. John Gachi. He is with the University of Cape Coast Business School, and he's here with us. A very good morning to you, Dr. Gachi.
Good morning.
Okay. And what do you make summarily with the budget presentation in terms of what the expectations were and whether if you have to encapsulate it, it met expectations from all diverse fronts?
Well, I think it is not possible for a budget in the times in which we live to meet all the expectations of all manner of people in the country. Visibly, you could see that some group of people were happy because it met their expectation. If you take the spare part dealers, for example, they were very happy because of the fact that import duties on the importation of spare parts were actually removed. Some parents may be happy because they are waiting to have a free SHS from September. But business in general, I do not think that they are wholly happy about the entire budget because even though removal of taxes on spare parts is very good, but it has other revenue mobilizing effect, and it also have some defeating purpose of imposing taxes on importation. We also realize that if you look at the free SHS, for example, of course, this is not the only social intervention that has that characteristic. One free SSS book, a school feeding program were introduced. It didn't cover the entire people that was actually earmarked to benefit from the program. The same thing is happening with the free SHS. You have some students going to Form 2, Form 3, who will not benefit from the package. So that is the characteristics of social intervention programs in the country. So definitely you don't expect that everybody will be happy. The thing that affects the life of people on a daily basis are utilities, fuel prices. Those things you do not have significant tax cuts in that area.
Okay, so we'll come and look at the specifics, but let's look at, in some of the summaries in audiovisual.
As part of our commitment to improve access to education at all levels, government will implement the comprehensive free public senior high school program, starting with the 2017-2018 academic year. Mr. Speaker, adequate provision have been made for the funding of this monumental social intervention program, which is set to begin in September 2017 from the ABFA and other domestic revenue sources. Mr. Speaker, we will initiate discussions with all stakeholders interested in the performance and excellence of their senior high schools in their communities. Parents, school alumni, religious organizations, the diaspora, and they'll be encouraged to establish a funding mechanism to support high schools of their choice. This will reinforce community involvement in governance and improve the quality of education in our senior high schools. With this budget, abolish the 1% special import levy. Abolish the 17.5% VAT on financial services. abolish the 17.5% VAT on selected imported medicines that are not produced locally. Initiate steps to remove import duties on raw materials and machinery. We will initiate steps to remove import duties on raw materials and machinery for production within the context of the ECOWAS Common External Tariff Protocol. We will abolish the 70.5% of domestic airline tickets. We will abolish the 5% VAT on real estate sales. Mr. Speaker, we will abolish excise duty on petroleum. Mr. Speaker, we will reduce the special petroleum tax rate from 70.5% to 15%. We shall abolish levies imposed on Kaya by local authorities. We are also determined to tackle the systemic abuse in the exemptions regime. There shall be a comprehensive review of the regime on import duty exemptions and tax reliefs with a view to eliminating abuses and improving efficiency in the application of these incentives. To this end, the review will cover, among others, the following exemptions and tax reliefs as a matter of urgency: import duties, taxes, and levies payable by MDAs and other government departments; import duties on all forms of taxes and levies payable by both domestic and foreign companies, suppliers, and contractors executing projects and contracts in the country; import duty on all forms of taxes and levies payable by employees, directors, and senior officials of both domestic and foreign companies, suppliers, and contractors executing projects in the country; import duties and all forms of taxes and levies payable by both domestic and foreign companies and investors doing business in the country; and import duties on all forms of taxes and levies payable by non-governmental and charity organizations.
The Minister of Finance, just on the floor of Parliament, as he was delivering the budget or government's financial statement for the fiscal year. And summarily, Dr. John Gachi, now let's first take a look at the senior high school policy, a policy that we're told would ensure that we have the line items on the payable reports, or perhaps the fees that need to be paid by parents for the awards in senior high schools, to be free in many respects. That should incentivize the sector, or incentivize parents to encourage a lot more of their children to go to school at that level.
Well, I think a lot of things have been done to increase access to education at all levels. More investment needed to be made to make it produce quality graduates, if you like. I do not think that in this country people are overly against free SHS. I do not think so. But what has been of interest to all manner of people is the funding source and how it is arranged. I think that is where the issue is. And if you listen to the finance minister clearly, and you juxtapose it with the debate before the presentation of the budget, it is very clear that as we speak, we do not have a very clear funding source. If you look at the ABFA that he used, the same finance minister a while ago, while reading, indicated that the main areas of allocation for the ABFA have been maintained, which means you have already committed the ABFA. Now, if you commit the ABFA, it takes about 3 years for review. And he said that some of them were due for review, and they have decided that they should maintain allocating money for those areas. So where is the money from the ABFA that you are going to use to finance the free SHS? Again, bear in mind that the ABFA is undertaking some fiscal projects, and some of these projects have not been completed. So you will again need a stream of revenue flow from the ABFA to continue to finance those projects. And beyond the ABFA is other sources. And the other sources also include community leaders, NGOs, to contribute to a fund to finance the free SHS. I think that is where, as a country, we may use, I think, the whole of the year to continue to think through how we are going to sustain funding for the free SHS. If not so, we will do more harm than, the good that we want to do to the children of this country. Now,
prior to this announcement, the argument for and against, especially against the whole incentive, was supposed to say that, well, you don't have the funding sources, and more so, it could affect the quality of education that is given. But that is not a precondition, or it's not a given, is it?
It's not a precondition. If you are doing some work with schools at that level, you will know that access is different from quality. So we have not taken bold steps to invest in the things that bring about quality. How much do we invest in professional development of teachers? It's very, very weak.
And if you say professional development, you're talking about retraining, tooling.
Exactly.
Okay. Incentivizing.
In fact, even how to
yes,
teach specific subjects in a manner that would be appreciated by children. We have not invested so much in those things.
In terms of the learning forms?
Yes.
Okay.
Even the school environment. We have seen so many schools without sanitation facilities or infrastructure, etc. So all these things are there. So what is happening now is only increasing the access. It does not increase the quality that we want for the people of Ghana. So that is another aspect that we need to engage and make sure that we commit ourselves to a robust funding for professional development and all the investment that are needed to increase quality. So I do not think that the free SHS actually automatically increase quality. It only increase access. And even that access, there is discrimination. And as I say, it's not the MPP government who is doing it for the first time. When we introduced a school feeding program, we didn't cover the entire country. Even up to now, it didn't cover the entire country. Meanwhile, there are some children in some part of the country who may need the school, free feeding more than some other children, but they have not gotten access to it.
You mentioned that we have to think through, use the whole fiscal year to think through better the funding sources. What did you mean by that?
What I mean is that because it's a campaign promise, you see, what is happening in the country is that every government wants to be identified with a specific legacy. Every government wants to be identified with a specific...
That is the general observation.
That's the general observation. It is very clear that there are two things that the MPP government want to be identified with, that they have eased the business environment and they have introduced or committed themselves to free SHS. So by that, everything will be done to showcase that we say we will do it from September. Whether the funding sources are reliable or not, we will commit ourselves to it. But the point is, I see this whole exercise as complying with the Constitution and also in the interest of the people of Ghana. So that will be having somewhat ad infinitum effect. What that means is that we do not envisage that will stop anywhere soon. That is why, even though, in my opinion, the funding sources are not so reliable, you will need to think through to make sure that as you go along,
you beef up.
You beef up and then make the funding sources more reliable.
Now, at the end of the day also, for other sectors, and we know that government had promised, especially during the campaign when the party was in full swing, that the industry as well as businesses, especially those imported, will be given some reliefs. Now, we also know that on the other side of the bargain or the coin is the fact that you also need some level of revenue from those areas. Even that imports generally do not encourage local industries also to develop or perhaps to nurture themselves in such a way that they become a lot more competitive. Now, if we have the abolition of levies on imported spare parts or specialized medicines that are not manufactured by our local pharmaceuticals, etc., how does that perhaps synchronize with that notion, you know, trying to develop your industry at the same time whilst abolishing taxes on imports?
Well, I think it is a general view that taxes are for multiple reasons. One is to raise revenue.
Okay.
Another is to protect your economy or to protect specialized sectors of the economy. So any time that you are dealing with either introduction or removal or reduction in taxes, this thing should be considered. Again, we do know that our economy depends overly on imports. And we claim that it has been affecting the performance of the currency. That is true, but so long as your economy is built on import, if you are dealing with import, you need to be very careful. Because if import drops in this country to, let's say, about 30%, you know the effect that it will have on revenue mobilization, the effect it will have on jobs, the effect it will have on the creativity of people, because some businesses depend solely on foreign raw materials.
So it affects even inflation at the end of the day.
Exactly. So you don't just look at one side. For example, if you, instead of cutting down on import duties on spare parts, you remove it, do you know the effect it will have in terms of the number of people who want to engage in import of spare parts?
What if there's a market for it?
Well, we wait to see if the market will be there. What happens when people begin to bring substandard products into the country? Because you have now opened the floodgate.
Well, check the standards and the removal of the import duty taxes are not the same, are they? Because
yes.
Standard could not be equated to the tax.
Yeah, exactly so. But so long as it is easier to bring the things to the country, there is high possibility that
you could have a flooding,
you can have influx of those things into the country. So we also need to put measures in place to ensure that as it becomes easier in terms of importation costs for spare part dealers to bring spare parts into the country, the other aspects also need to be catered for seriously. So I think these are the things that we need to look at. But we also need to realize that we are in a country where deficit is our problem. As it is now, one of the problems confronting the country...
If you're talking about deficit, you mean on the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
So if within this period of high deficit, as we are told, you are going to engage in all these things, then it means that you are cutting down on revenue and you are likely going to deepen the deficit. In fact, the truth of the matter is that some of the measures put in place, if they are going to yield good results, they are not going to yield good results this year. It may take time. So it means that you will suffer some of the pains of revenue loss for the year. And if you don't manage it very well, that can create problem for the country. Remember, at the time that we are doing all these things, we do not have a true hold on how to manage the currency. The currency is volatile. So longer the currency is volatile, if we want to convert our debt into Ghana cedis, it will shoot up. So longer the currency is volatile, it will dovetail into inflation build-up in the
well,
country.
Dr. Gachi, that even brings me to my next question with the currency volatility and vis-a-vis the the times or quarters of the year when we tend to have a more excessive exposure of the currency to those upward or downward prices as far as the hikes are for the currencies per the international major trading currencies. So what happens then if we open the floodgates? I mean, practically, a lot more imports come in, but then at some point when the market has exhausted them, we need to, because demand has increased, we need to also go bring more. At that point, wouldn't it affect the currency? Because then there will be a lot more flights.
I think those are the things we are basically talking about. But the point is, we shouldn't forget our history and the cycle of our currency in terms of its performance. Our currency basically is a depreciating currency, so it will continue to depreciate. But what has been our problem is whether there will be some acceptable band within which the currency will be oscillating. But that has been our problem. So when we put measures in place that will not allow the currency to depreciate within, a comfortable band, that creates problem for the country. So that is what I'm talking about.
Would you say government then is being smart with some of the removal of the taxes? For example, we have the ones that are issued on local traders by the various MMDAs. And so you make it flat 3% for traders and the markets, etc. They're comfortable. Domestic airline, that component of the taxation as far as VAT is concerned has been removed on real estate. Because you look at the numbers involved, even though there are many, but they don't reach those percentage levels for which you say that once they are removed, you should be worried.
Well, I think the finance minister made that clear yesterday. He stated that those are not areas that are revenue yielding. So by his estimation and by my understanding, the ones that yield more revenue are still there. That is why we will continue to pay import duties on raw materials across board. That is the reason why, even though we were told that corporate tax will be reduced from 25% to 20%, that didn't happen because he's mindful about some of this. So the area that he thinks that the economy may be comfortable with, those are the areas he has brought to bear. But I think we need to also realize that the budget also responds to some of the complaints in the past. For example,
from the markets.
Yes. If you are conversant with the airline, industry, you realize that people talk about removal of VAT from the ticket so that it can encourage a lot more people to patronize the airline in the country. And of course, the interest of ordinary people, business people, in using airlines for their travels, especially between Accra, Kumasi, and Tamale, has increased significantly. And you will need something to keep that momentum. So I think, for me, that has been a response to the call by people in the past. So that was a good move to remove the 17.5% from the airline listing. And then again, if you look at the performance of the capital market, it has not been good for some time. You realize that the composite index, together with the market capitalization, were all going down. That is not very good for the market, and you also need a lot more of people to have confidence to participate in the market. So if you think that tax measures can be one of the incentives to allow the market to resume a vibrant activity, that should also be very
because
good.
For many of the
so
times,
I think that some of the measures in the budget are responding to those things that we all know.
The sectorial concerns.
Yeah, the sectorial concerns.
Now, there was one particular announcement that was made that if corporate institutions, corporate entities would employ fresh graduates, new graduates, they'll be giving some incentives. Explain that to me.
Yeah,
what does it mean?
Before I explain that, when we come to the 3% tax,
The 3%, the flat one that has now been introduced now.
The VAT is based on input output. Okay, how much when you purchase, how much VAT you pay, and when you sell, how much VAT you charge or you receive. Then you strike the balance. If the balance indicates that you should pay something to the government, you pay. If the balance indicates that, so yeah. But I think I may be corrected, but I think during the late Barrod's regime, that was introduced for the same traders, and but they realized later that the 3% also, I think that time it was 5% or so, the flat rate that they were paying, when they calculated, they realized that they were rather paying more than when they were under the VAT, I mean the proper VAT regime. So they agitated and they brought them back to the new regime. So I don't know whether we will get to a point where the same traders will come back and say, look, this 3% this flat rate that we are paying, we have realized that it's rather eating into our capital, etc. We want to revert to, because now you don't have opportunity to take advantage of your input VAT. You are just, when you sell, let's say 1,000 Ghana cedis, you pay a flat rate of 3%. To some people, when they do the calculation, they may realize that after all, they are not better off. So we don't know what will happen in that distance. Now, if you want to incentivize employers to employ, see, there are indicators for employment. The economic indicators must indicate that you need to employ. Now, if businesses are not expanding, tax incentive does not, encourage them to hire people for hiring sake. So my point is that businesses can only employ fresh graduates if the economic indicators are good for them. If they are not making profit, they are not expanding, they will not go and employ people because there is something
but
called
tax incentive. What if somebody from the finance minister's office argues that the other incentivized measures undertaken, the removal of the corporate, the reduction of the corporate taxes in themselves.
Why is it?
As far as we're concerned, for some level of industries, for example, if you're an industry, you very much import pharmaceuticals, and you don't do the manufacturing locally, and you're having a reduction or perhaps the removal of those taxes on the imports, you can have a room to expand, and that ultimately means that you also have a room to take more, a lot more hands on your job.
Well, I think what is more practical for me is that I think in the 2015-2016 budget, a program was rolled out for the pharmaceutical sector, yes, because the country realized that we were
the one that resulted in a 50 million, is it Ghana cedi or something?
I think they estimated about $6 million per year was spent on importation of some selected drugs. In fact, those drugs are such that the pharmaceutical industry in Ghana has some ability to produce them, except that they need to be incentivized to strengthen them to produce those selected drugs. I think the
generics.
Yeah, a committee was set up, and then they identified about 20 drugs. So the pharmaceutical sector, I think the thing is that we should rather encourage Ghanaians to produce those drugs that they can produce with the same level of efficacy to create jobs and then take control over the pharmaceutical business.
So you're saying then this one is okay, but it's
yeah, it's okay, but I think we need to tie it
overall
up with overall what is actually going on.
Okay. So now let's listen or watch Organized Labour, and they've been reacting to the budget statement. And Solomon Kota is the General Secretary of the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union.
The highlight for us is the nuisance taxes that have been dealt with. We know he did mention that in the short to medium term, all these things will be rolled out, and we'll see how the net effect comes to us and gives us the reliefs that we are looking for. In the area of the banking tax of 17.5% that have been abolished, is one of the big news that will come to all workers who get their salaries through the banks.
And so, well, they describe this as their SEMPA budget, which would help us deal with situations of over-reliance on aid and make us more self-sufficient as a nation. Do you see that?
No, that is not holistic, because in this presentation, he did also say there will be some foreign funding to some of the projects that will run. So if we are looking at 50% and expecting 70% to come from outside, it means our dependency ratio is still high.
So let's go back to what you spoke about earlier. You said you're expecting a lot of relief for your people now that those taxes have been taken off. So when those taxes were on, what kind of suffering were your people going through?
Well, it means that what is supposed to be your net salary was no more your net salary, because your salary hit the bank and then other taxes again goes to hit you there. So to realize your real income was always a problem. But now these things have been mentioned to us and announced to the whole world. The application of it will allow the Ghanaian, especially those of us whose salary goes to the bank, to see our net worth. And then to the VAT that has also been touched. I mean, your indirect taxes virtually goes down and you see more money in your pocket.
And so going forward, broadly, what's your expectation?
My expectation is that the debates of all the headlines in the budget, when it is done, and the actual timelines are beginning to roll its implementation. Like as we speak now, you get to Agbubulushi and Demonstration. I believe all the Kayaye, will be jumping and saying that our levies are over. But in this particular presentation, you can't do this now. It must bring it back for Parliament to use law to bring it into fruition.
The IMF program, he indicated that a review will be done, but we can see an extension of it in terms of us taking with the program. Labour front, you've had a very strong position when it comes to the issue of IMF. Hearing the latest confirmation that the program would continue from the finance minister himself, what do you say to that?
We'll be interested to know the type of extension. Are those extensions still going to have the strings attached to say, don't employ, reduce public sector funding? The extension also telling us that you cannot do A, B, C, things that will normally allow the system to flow. If those restrictions are still there, then the extension is going to put us into more trouble.
And then what will you say to that? If, for example, those restrictions are going to remain, then how will Labour react to that?
You notice in the three thematic areas where the spendings of our revenue is, one of them is payment of interest rates on borrowings, which is one of them is to the IMF. If the extension is going to go that way and will not have a real relief, then I think the debate on the floor will push some of us who are the pressure groups to at least let the government know that decision cannot be taken.
Finally, lots of ambitious targets, lots of tax cuts and all of that. Do you honestly think government would have the funding to implement all of these promises?
I'm only hoping that being in opposition for almost 8 years will not push for such, juicy offers to be made. My biggest worry, can they walk the talk of all these promises? And I believe when the debate is done, we will see whether the roadmaps are feasible or not.
Thank you.
And Solomon Kote is the General Secretary for the Industrial Commercial Workers Union. And he had also been making a lot more comments on especially the ones that will give industries the room to employ a lot more people. But we know that that cannot happen in isolation, can it?
Well, I think I made a point already. Industry, we have been good times before. I don't know the level of commitment of businesses to employment. So that will not change significantly. It is only when we engage in our business and entrepreneurial activities in areas that can expand fast and take more people. If we don't do that, this incentive alone is not enough to bring about increase in employment, especially for graduates in the country. And as I stated earlier on, I'm yet to see a business which will just go to the market and pick people because I will get some tax advantage. If that tax advantage would not actually be enough to cater for the cost of hiring a person, all the problems that go with hiring a person, if the person compares that and it doesn't match, that will not lead to employment. I think what should be more practical is how we should incentivize our young entrepreneurs, which was indicated in the budget. But you see, we have this great idea, but how we implement them becomes a problem.
Meaning?
This is not the first time that we are earmarking the young entrepreneurs to cater for. The previous government also did something. The targeting has been the problem. I think The former MPP government also did something where they introduced venture capital thereabout. But eventually, these schemes actually turned out to be another avenue for granting loan. And I don't know what you can see for a young entrepreneur to be able to give such a person a loan. Those people should be catered for by specific funds that are created, a pool of funds
as
that,
grants, so to speak,
that they can access, you know, so that from the beginning they structure the engagement in such a way that some other people who have funds can partner with these young people to undertake business activity. That is the practical way of going about this thing.
But for the small startups, at least we're also going to have the complementary, perhaps, incentive of having what we call the various business units being established in each, is it in each district? Each district, thereabouts, yes. And we know that the private sector is going to play a critical role. They are not supposed to be big factories, but they're supposed to be small enterprises that will operate at that level. How is that going to create the needed jobs that we need? And would they become profitable in the medium to long term?
Well, I think we just have to be very truthful to ourselves. This agenda is not something that will be very fruitful in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. It will take a long process to go. It will take a long period of time to get business incubation sectors across all the districts in the country. And the truth of the matter is that when you have a business idea, especially at the incubation stage or the seed stage, it does not mean that all those ideas will get into, the real business level that you can get marketable product and services out of them. Of course, we do know that all those people who venture into entrepreneurial activities, we have a very small percentage of those people actually staying on course. But what is the reality is that most of those people that stay on course, their activities are so great that when they get good support, they expand so fast and they are able to accommodate a lot more of people. I think that is what will be the case as we go along. Yes, entrepreneurial activities will be going on, it has been going on, but the fruit should not be expected that it will be so great that within a short period of time, all graduates will be accommodated. So that expectation should be moderated somehow.
But at the end of the day, we'll have $1 million CD equivalent for each constituency. We have 275 constituencies. Of course, collapsing into districts also, and metropolitan as well as municipal areas.
Well, I think before I come to that point, it is also good to indicate that the fact that our successive governments are identifying that entrepreneurial drive for young people and all manner of people in the country is the way to go is good. What is left is that for vast majority of our young people to accept this new dimension of managing our own life so that they can actually participate in the process as expected. But the point is, I think there is an idea of allocating $1 million to each
It's not an idea, now it's going to be fruitful.
Yeah.
It's been announced in the budget.
No, I don't want to use the word "is going to be fruitful." We have seen budgets with many ideas, many projects in it that have not been actually implemented. So this is a budget. Some things will happen, that some other things will not actually take place. But the point is that this is what the government wants to do to the people of Ghana, and it does not mean that it will be done at all costs. But the point is that I am not very clear how that is going to be done. Of course, when they are being implemented, we may see the reality, because I want to see what structures in the constituency will be receiving that money. Because my understanding is that the district assembly will be operating differently from this constituency fund. So what structure do we have in the constituency to receive this money? especially is it going to go to the operative of the government in power in the constituencies? What is the capacity of those people?
The constituencies don't have structures as that now, apart from being
Yes.
apart from MPs who are heads of those.
Very good. So that's why I feel we need to understand this thing
In terms of the clarity.
The clarity, and more so for ourselves. So for me, this year could be a year of feasibility.
Okay.
For that project, but the idea have been put forward. So people should not be expecting that by all means, maybe by September or by middle of the year, 1 million will be released. It could be that this is the year for feasibility studies.
Well, the finance minister says that once it's been budgeted for the fiscal year, it will be released. But the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources, Joseph Kofi Adda, has also been speaking on plans for his sector as captured in the budget.
Our general reaction is that Ghanaians should see this as a relief. They should be excited. They should see hope in the future, that all the good things that we talked about during the campaigns, we've been able to introduce them in our budgets, which means that we're serious about the work, and God willing, everything will unfold well, and the benefits will come to all of us. Ghana will be a place that would put us back to work.
The area of water resources and sanitation, I don't really recall hearing a lot on that, but how promising does that sector where you manage in particular look like?
Oh, there's quite a bit about all the water plants that we have to implement, the treatment plants, everything from Accra to Cape Coast to Takoradi to Techima to Sunyani up to Navrongo, Yendi, Damongo, it's all in there. Sanitation, we talked about new policy, we talked about new agency that will be created. We also talked about 4,500 professional sanitation workers and how to make it very effective. 20,000 youth will be involved in the enforcement aspect of it. There's so much in there. And in fact, I think it's a new lease on life from Nana Akufo-Addo for us to clean up our environment and ensure that Ghana is a place that remains attractive to anybody who comes here, something that we all like to do.
On the bit having to do with water, I recall hearing something about 20,000 boreholes that would actually be, dug across the country. Just some additional details on that. How do we do the identification of the communities involved, and how do we ensure it's distributed fairly to all those who really need it?
Let me correct. The 25,000 is what we put in our manifesto. What we've put this time around, about 3,000 is for a start. Okay, there's some ongoing boreholes. We want to complete that, and there's 3,000 we're going to bring on board, and some of them will be converted into small town water systems. All those are part of the budget. If you get a detailed statement, you'll see what we've elaborated in there.
Very ambitious policies. The assumption is that probably the funding for all of this may not be available after all. How do you react to that criticism of the promises of your administration?
The New Patriotic Party never does anything without thinking through it very well. Okay, we put ourselves to school, we think through all the issues, we come up with all the options, and we take the best approach to implementing those programs. These are not overly ambitious. They are realistic things that we discussed and then developed policies on. What we've said in there is what we've thought through, and we're sure we're going to do that.
My final bit would be the cut down on statutory funds and the capping at 25%, as the minister indicated. Well, yourself, you're a member of parliament, you work very closely with the district assemblies and all of that. This is more like robbing Peter to pay Paul. You cut down on those funding and use it to go and fund your $1 million, how do they call it, the $1 million per constituency project, and they think it's unfair.
What we're putting before the people is the prioritization and the effective use of the funds that are available to us. There's no point in always spreading up the money so thinly to all kinds of areas, after which you don't see any real results. If we're earmarking those funds under the IPEP that the Minister of Finance read to the whole nation, we are prioritizing what needs to be done with respect to factories, with respect to dams and so on and so forth. So if the money is going to those areas that you and I can monitor and ensure that we can implement and get results out of that, it's better than putting money all over the place for which we don't really see any results. Some of the funds sometimes go into running of vehicles, buying fuel, rather than going to capital investment. I'm not so sure if it's robbing Peter to pay Paul, but if you look at the tax reliefs and the fact that the economy would become robust and begin to get vibrant again, a lot more money will come in by way of a wider tax net. And that's where we get the money from, to do all these things.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
And Joseph Kofiada is the Minister for Sanitation, water and sanitation. But it also means that those are sectoral areas that we also need to take a critical look at. And if you look at sanitation, it's an area in which you don't get a lot more revenue in terms of you're not going to recoup your investment in such a way. It looks more like providing services and infrastructure for the citizenry, and in such a way we fall back to that same era of just investing in infrastructure without adequate means of recouping over the period.
Well, I think this may continue for some time because all the sanitation programs and infrastructure is such that it's not accompanied with the kind of education and the commitment, the responsibility that all of us have to put on ourselves. We believe that these things are supposed to be provided by the state and not the individual. So the individual commitment to contribute to sanitation is very low. And until we get to that point that we are able to influence individuals and communities to know that they have a role in terms of paying for some of these things, we will continue to suffer this development. You find that you have sanitation infrastructure in some communities. It gets broken down. There's no money to repair them because the community is not committed to, sustaining all these things. So I believe that we have not changed that much, and government will be responsible by committing funds into sanitation infrastructure and programs, but we have not gotten to the point where the citizenry have actually taken that responsibility to complement the effort of government.
Well, before the budget was ready, actually during the campaign, we were told that if we are able to put in place a proper national identification system, it also, in many respects, solves half our problems in tracking revenue and also taxation and collection, etc. And the commitment is now there in the budget that this and so amount will be devoted for a national identification scheme. In the medium to long term, what are the pros and cons about it?
No, I think there's no question about the prospect of national identification system for the country. It's only that we shouldn't we shouldn't expect beyond a certain level what it can do for us. The point is that it will help us in our security management. Depending on how we utilize the data, it may also help us in managing our task identification process, election management, all sorts of things. In fact, it depends on the way we deploy the system. In some countries, without the national identification card, identification number, you cannot open a bank account. In fact, in the schools, nobody gives you an index number. Your index number depends on the national identification number. So wherever you go, in fact, when you take a loan from the bank and you refuse to pay, they just press a button and then they flag you. Wherever you go, everybody knows who you are. So it's very important, but it depends on how we utilize it.
The deployment.
Yeah, the deployment of the national identification data. But I think it's very clear that the purpose of the national identification have been earmarked for management of taxes and the management of security and perhaps the election process. So it's very important. The problem has to do with, it started for about 10 years now. One doesn't know why we cannot commit ourselves to this particular project, complete it, and then we move on to another thing. So I think that we only pray that this will not be the case like the previous two governments. The first MPP government and then the NDC government continue it. I have my card in a way. I use it sometimes, but we need to broaden the scope.
I never got my card.
I have it. It's
even though I got
here.
registered.
Yeah. So I think it's a good thing that we need to complete that project because it has a lot of benefit for the economy.
But at the end of the day, is that we need to make sure that in the collection of the taxes, we also broaden the net. Would this help us to broaden the tax net?
Of course, yes, but that depends on the psychic of the government of the day. You may know that somebody is doing this economic activity, but decide not to enforce the law to tax him. So it's all about enforcement of our tax law. By this, it is easy to identify the economic activities of people. But this can also be enhanced if we deepen our effort at doing what we call the cashless economic activity. So
it helps us better.
Exactly. So when people are paid through this platform, it can be tracked, as opposed to when I come to your project site to work for a day, you pay me 100 Ghana cedis, but you pay me cash. Nobody sees what happened.
So you're saying that we may undertake a holistic national identification exercise, but then it should translate in the transaction processes.
Yeah, the transaction process is also very important. Okay. Because it is only then.
So the less we utilize cash and make use of electronic means, the better.
Yes.
That's when the
incentive the tracking
for
can be
having
effective.
The national identification system becomes useful. All right.
So as at now, I think we are focusing only on the public sector. You see in the budget, they talk about, I think, middle of the year or so, they are going to stop payment through cash, etc. But we need to broaden the scope, that wherever you go in the market, I think it is easy for our market women. You will be amazed how some of our mothers and our aunties who have never stepped in a classroom before are using mobile phone. So it's just a matter of practical education. Our people in the market selling tomatoes here across the country, you go to the tabletop, they can also use a system that can accept, cashless transaction activities, and that can help us to actually better benefit from this system.
I see. So we have Roads and Highways Minister Kwesi Amoako-Attah, who has also been reacting to the budget statement.
We are going to embark upon, aggressive action in tackling the road sector. At the moment, the network size is a little over 72,000. Okay, out of which only 23% is paved. The remaining 77% is unpaved. So we have a lot of work to do. Okay, previous governments, right from independence, had done their bit of it. But we still have a very large vacuum. Can you imagine, 77% of our total road network size, being unpaved? Okay, so we have a lot of work.
There's a lot of.
The Roads and Highways Minister, Kwesi Amoako-Attah. But we spent a lot of money on roads the last time around, and we still have a lot more. The argument during the campaign was that you build roads, but you don't derive the economic benefits straight away in terms of the monetary value straight away. How can we better perhaps realize a lot more from the roads that we build?
I think there are two ways of realizing that. You see, you can invest in roads as a means of deepening economic activities, bridging the gap between the rural and the urban economy. In such a case, you should be mindful when you want to toll the roads, because the purpose is to provide incentive to bridge the gap between the rural economy and the urban economy. In fact, there are many productive areas in the country that are not connected to the next productive area or the next market center within the country. And we will need to continue to invest in roads of that nature. But there are some highways that we can toll to get some immediate money for repayment, etc. But a large stock of our roads, I do not think that we should be tolling them. But the point is that we should also bear in mind that the taxes that you collect from market women here and there, they use good roads to convey those food items or goods to the market before they pay taxes, etc. So the roads are actually facilitating that process. So you should look at road from the perspective of an input into enhancing economic activity in the country. And some of the highways, you can decide to toll them to get money for that purpose. But the point is that since roads are playing this dual role, we also need to commit ourselves to quality. Sometimes some of the roads that we construct to play the role that I have enumerated, aside that they don't last, and we go back to the days where we don't have roads. So I think we should be mindful about that also.
Well, at the end of the day, it's the fact that we have to make sure that the resources we have per what we can also collect is what we use. And so the finance minister said you have, is it 2 fishes and 5 loaves of bread or thereabout? Okay. Now, at the end of the day, what's the meaning of what he said? Is it because we don't have enough and we have to use it to feed the chunk of our population?
Well, I think that bit of his presentation was a little bit, different people will interpret it differently.
Okay.
You know, Jesus Christ used the 5 loaves of bread and
5
2
loaves of bread and 2
fishes.
Okay.
And he fed all the people to satisfaction. So the question is, the budget is not actual delivery. It's just a plan. So you have not yet satisfied the needs of the people to compare the budget or your delivery with that miracle that Jesus performed. And again, you realize it's not everybody who is wholly happy about what you are presented. People felt that transport fares could go down in the future because fuel prices will go down because the energy sector levy will be removed, but it was not removed. So Jesus did complete, holistic miracle. But you only commit yourself that you want to use the limited resources of the country to do your best. In fact, there has not been any government in this country that has overflowing resources. So all government have scarce resources, no matter how you look, whether you describe it as good time or bad time. So for me, the way I understand the scripture, I think that scripture doesn't fit into it. But if you want to be very liberal, what he's trying to say is that within the limited resources, they would do their best to deliver on some of the promises.
And we have to wrap up our discussions, but I want us to wrap up with this. What usually influences the key indicators are 2 things: the energy price, either petroleum or for mainstream electricity generation. And if you look at the 2, the expectation was that we'll have drastic reduction on petroleum products as far as the pricing or the tax components are. And then the incentives to make sure that we create the environment that will bring per kilowatt hour the consumption or the production and per the prices that are paid by consumers. So you start with petroleum.
Well, I must say that I'm quite happy that we didn't touch the energy sector levy drastically.
Why? Because it was...
it is not because I don't feel it when they increase the price. I feel it when they increase the price. But I see some of these levies were solutions to endemic problems. And if we are not able to keep to the promise we made to other sectors, like the banking sector and the players in the energy sector, it will come back to bite it severely. So for me, you don't have to pay your debt forever. We can wait when we are able to pay this debt. You can go to Parliament and scrap it, because the purpose for which the levy was introduced has been met. Look, there are a lot of debt owed by the energy sector players to the financial sector. These debts crystallize into non-performing loan. If you know the banking situation, the moment you go beyond 90 days, you need to make provisions for those loans that somebody took from you and was not able to pay. So you are actually straining the performance of the banking sector. And we ourselves will come back and say that non-performing loans in the banking sector is a risk. Who caused it? Both government and the players in the energy sector. So the players in the banking sector, government and the energy sector, they all came together and agreed, let us elongate, let us restructure these non-performing loans into actual loans over a long period of time. But let us have a reliable and consistent source of revenue that will be repaid so that all of us will be happy. And that is how come the Energy Sector Levy Act was actually promulgated, I think, at the end of 2015. We are barely 1 year, and it is performing. It's helping the financial sector. Financial sector is happy about that arrangement. So if you go and they scrap it, and you don't have a reliable source of revenue to cater for that commitment, that creates another problem. So that is why I think I am comfortable that they didn't touch it significantly, not because it doesn't hurt me or not because it doesn't hurt other people, but we must solve the problems of the country. When we take bold steps to solve a problem, we should allow that bold step to actually work to its conclusion. Then we can think of what we should do next.
All right. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We've had in the studio Dr. John Gachi helping us do analysis of the budget. You've also had insights from the Roads and Highways Minister, Kwesi Amwakwata, as well as the Minister for Water and Sanitation, Joseph Kofiada, and a number of personalities. But all in all, we hope that you've also gotten some education on the subject of the budget, and you can do further reading on our various platforms. Join us on TV. We've posted the content of the budget there, and you can also catch us on our Twitter handle at Join Us on TV. And Dr. John Gachi, thanks for joining us this morning. Dr. John Gachi is with the University of Cape Coast Business School and helping us do analysis, post-analysis on the budget presented to Parliament by Ken Oforiatta. We're taking a break. When we come back, we'll talk on other relevant issues. You may have been hearing that 8 people apparently sustained machete wounds in a clash between supposedly MPP and NDC supporters over who should control the Abuabo Lorry station in Kumasi. And Erastus Asaridonko, who will be live from the grounds to talk to us on the subject. We're taking a break. We'll be right back with Mama View Usu Abuaje.
Budget is a budget of hope. It's a budget of restoration. So I am surprised our friends in the NDC, instead of accepting the good things in the budget, are calling it for 419. What is the 419 in it?
So for you, it's an Asempa budget.
It's a simple budget, and I'm surprised that the very thing that they could not do, we have been able to do, and instead of acknowledging the effort of the finance minister, they are calling it 419.
This disappointment had to do, if I understood him correctly, with the details that weren't given. For instance, the free SHS that he mentioned, details weren't given. And for instance, the railway that we are going to have in the country as well, where the monies are going to come from and so on. Those were the reasons he thinks, makes him think it's a 419 budget.
The budget is a statement of the statement of accounts for 1 year. And the budget statement presented is for 1 year. So if the finance minister is saying that we are going to construct road from Takrady to Paga, the source of funding is in the budget. What my friends were asking the finance minister to do was to specify where the money was coming from. But the finance minister is saying that the free senior high school education that we are going to introduce, the source of funding is coming from the budget. And he gave specification that we are going to start from 2017, 2018. So what is he saying? the finance minister is able to tell us where the money is coming from, and the money is coming from the budget.
For instance, this is a major, financial statement, government's fiscal policy. One would want to know whether we've done the feasibility study, whether we've done the, if you like, the calculations on how much it would cost the country. As a free senior high school, as I stand here right now, I can't tell how much the 2017-2018 academic year is going to cost the nation.
The purpose of this budget is, first of all, to deliver on our campaign promise and also to expose the rot in the NDC. As per the finance statement given by the finance minister, we have cost for every project that has been mentioned in the budget.
So how much is it?
I cannot tell you for now, but what I know is that we have the values for all the estimates that has been given in the budget. That is why we call it a budget. We have the expenditure, we have the revenue. The finance minister has given how we are going to spend the expenditure and how we are going to raise revenue. That is why when it comes to the issue of raising revenue, he did mention where we are going to raise revenue. When it comes to the issue of expenditure, he mentioned instances where some taxes are going to be abolished. And these are some of the things I think is something which calls for Ghanaians to accept that the MPP has been able to deliver on its manifesto.